Hi everyone. Let's talk. Do we have any choice? They're the only two on screen on the chart. Pluto and Neptune, the two furthest most planets in our solar system. Both have changed signs now. Pluto for good did that towards the end of 2023, 2020. No, it was in 2024. Gosh, I have no memory. Hang on, let me look at my notes. It was in 2024, towards November of 2024. Sorry. And Neptune just did on the 30th of March. And remember, Neptune will go back into Pisces for one last stint. He'll do that from the 22nd of October to the 26th of January of 2026, and then be in Aries for about 13 years. This is the third video on that I wanted to talk about Neptune once again. And the sextile between Neptune and Pluto, these two have been in a sort of on and off or very loose, tighter sextile since 1947, believe it or not. Yes, you did hear that right. And it will last until 2034 because both of them have extremely long cycles. Remember, Pluto has a 248-year orbit around the sun, so none of us will experience Pluto and all the signs in one lifetime. Actually, it is quite limited. I think I counted maybe 6 or 7, depending where Pluto is when you're born and depending on what signs he is transiting. Pluto has a very narrow elliptical orbit, so spends less time in some signs. I think 16 years in Capricorn, but now we're looking at 20 in Aquarius. And of course, Neptune 165 years. So this is the first time in 165 years that Neptune is in Aries. And of course, none of us will experience Neptune through all the signs in just one lifetime either. And just interesting, as I was looking at this and going over my notes, 165 years for Neptune, 248 for Pluto, and 1.5 times Neptune's cycle is 247.5 years, so about 248. I'm going to get all nerdy with math here, but don't worry, it won't last long. That's just interesting, and half of Neptune's orbit, so 165 divided in half, gives us 82.5, and we know that Uranus's cycle, he's not up here, but he is in Taurus, is 84 years. So that's just interesting. They're the 3 last planets in our solar system, and they are marked halves or 1.5 times the others. And because of that, obviously, that's why Neptune and Pluto have been in this on again. I say on again, off again. They've been in sextile since 1947, but we are looking for 2 degrees or less. They have been in this configuration since 1947, but when they are really, really close together, there is a period from 1947 to 1990, so just interesting to know if you have your chart, maybe you do have these 2 planets at 2 degrees or less in a sextile formation, which means they have 1 sign between them. So they're 1-2 signs apart. The second one is 2022 to 2034. So if you know someone born in that period. And just before I talk about what I really want to talk about, Neptune has moved from Libra to Aries during this period, and Pluto has moved from Leo to Aquarius. This aspect, of course, in general, brings people with an energy of new ideas, of ideologies, very Neptunian. There has been this ongoing energy with these 2 in sextile formation of ending old ways, coming in with new belief systems. Remember, Pluto, what shows us what is corrupt, the underside, what isn't working. And of course, Neptune is that visionary energy. Pluto also is related to the masses and will be even more so in the sign of Aquarius. Neptune, of course, has a lot to do with intuition, creativity, tapping into that otherworldliness. Sometimes you often hear me talk about that when I talk about the 12th house or Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So all that, almost pulling something out of the blue, or often people with strong Neptunian energy get told, they're dreaming in color almost, because they just seem to have this vision, this new way of doing things, that creating in the purest sense of making something or bringing in something that has never been seen before. very easy for people with this energy to tap into the collective consciousness, that idea of where are we all going. And they have it often that sense of responsibility because they do see that, you know, that idea of what are we all about? Where are we all going? And of course, with the compassion of Neptune, how can I help my fellow person? Since this started way back in 1947, as I said, Neptune has traveled from Libra to Aries. So Aries, very much the self, Libra, very much self and in relationship to others. And Pluto has traveled from Leo to Aquarius. Leo, often when I talk about the fifth house in Leo, very much the individual self. And of course, Aquarius is the group. People at the bottom of the pyramid. Remember that Capricornian pyramid? This is the grassroots organizations and everybody at the bottom of the pyramid. It's also the idea of Leo, the king, that one person sitting on top or at the top. And of course, the masses, the plebes, the proletarians there at the bottom. Now that we have these two in sextile between Aquarius and the 11th house and Aries at the first house, we have one person, or that idea of individual energy, very much with Aries, that cardinal fire energy that initiates things, that is quite individualistic and self-focused. Remember, the first house has to do with the self, public profile, public image, but with that ability perhaps to tap into that collective consciousness. So that Neptunian compassion ideology is going to have a lot of initiating energy, a lot of drive. But sextile to Pluto, again, also with that intuition of Neptune, someone who can seem very relatable or able to relate to that collectiveness, to the group, you know, sort of that come with me energy. You know, I've got the right idea, or this is where I'm going, and do come along with me. A sextile is one of the easiest aspects in astrology, a little less flowing than a trine that just almost happens all by itself. But it does not take too much work to look outside of this individualism of Aries. And again, guys, no good or bad signs here, but Aries is the first sign and does tend to be very individualistic. Doesn't really look at what everybody else is doing, and that's a good thing. We all need a little bit of that energy, not worrying about what everybody else is thinking. But at the same time, realizing that, you know, if you don't have the support of the group, you're not really going to get anywhere, or that compassion of Neptune is probably going to push that energy of making sure we're helping everybody else, or everybody else is along with us. So there'll be probably a desire, whatever that ideology is, to have other people on board. Otherwise, we're just going to wind up with a big clash of ideals, a lot of individualistic energy, and everyone with their own ideas and ideals and goals, and that everybody is going to think is a very lofty ideal. And that is, I think, the title of one of the videos, Clash of Ideals. I'll link both of them below. The downside, of course, of Neptune is illusion. It's confusion. It is someone who gives the appearance, you know, Neptune even rules motion pictures, that image, and will give the appearance of being one of the people, or but behind that there could be an energy that is self-serving, you know, someone who is going to look the part, say the right thing, but who is just in it for themselves, or who is maybe serving, you know, I put this in my notes because it's the term that came to me, you know, a higher master. So they are working for themselves, or working for a small group or a very select group, but giving off the energy of being, you know, I'm for everybody and follow me, and I just want everybody's good, and I have all these great lofty ideas and ideals. And I think the key word is just going to be discernment. I actually usually have a keyword come to me at the start of every year, but 2024 and 2025 have both been that idea of discernment. There's just so much information out there, so many people saying so many things. We just have to remember to be discerning and to see if the actions match the words. So again, great energy to have someone come out and have ideals and want everyone's good and to be a leader in that sense, or an initiator, very much initiating energy with Aries and wanting to help everyone, again, showing that compassion of Neptune, but at the same time, beware the false prophets. And I do want to go through the sign by sign because I haven't done that yet. So for each one of us, what is Neptune's stay going to mean in our sign, be it sun sign or rising sign? Remember, our sun sign is a little more public. It's where we are seen more. It's sometimes what is happening to us or around us that is affecting us. Rising sign can be a little bit more personal. So if you are an Aries or an Aries rising, as I said, Neptune is entering your first house, also starting a new cycle. Neptune is starting a new cycle for all of us in terms of natal or natural house chart, I should say, but in terms of natal chart entering your first house, this, of course, is your image, your appearance, be it online, be it in person, your reputation, both online and in person, your profile, your status or standing in terms of what you are known as or who you are known to be. Neptune can make you very, very compassionate in the next coming years, the next 13 years. Can give you that energy of ideals that you want to reach. At the same time, Neptune blurs, remember, creates confusion, can even create deception. So beware perhaps of, where you stop as an individual and where others begin, if I can put it that way. Sometimes, this being the house of our public profile, public reputation, image, there is an encroachment with Neptune dissolving boundaries of us being defined too much by who we associate with. So sometimes we're going to have to muster the energy to be clear with, or clear on who we are and who we're not, despite those in our surroundings. So don't get mistaken being someone else. I think that's what I'm trying to say, or being taken for someone else depending on who you associate with. That would just be the downside, or people overstepping perhaps the boundaries on who you are, offering maybe too much advice, or that feeling of you're not being seen clear enough or heard clearly enough. That can be another downside with Neptune blurring boundaries. Remember, Neptune's job is to dissolve the ego. So you might be facing that a little bit over the course of the next several years when Neptune is transiting your first house. So let's go to Pisces, because this will be taking place in your second house. Of course, this is your money, your property that you own, shares. It is your possessions. It is your revenue as well, as opposed to the 8th house, which is wealth you share with someone else. And Neptune can bring you, Pisces, over the next several years, very creative ways to increase your revenue, very intuitive. Also, you might find your intuition, you already are very intuitive, Pisces, but your intuition is going to be heightened in terms of where to put your money, where to invest your money, what clients to go with, perhaps. If you're in a business where you have a lot of clients, you'll be able to discern which ones are, can I say, profitable or good clients, opposed to other ones that might give you some difficulty. But Neptune's compassion is also going to have you exploring, what does it all mean? Remember, Neptune is the dissolution of the ego. So if you are attaching too much importance to what you own as a source of self-esteem or how you identify, Neptune is really going to have you thinking about that, probably changing up your outlook over the next several years. And at the same time, also, Neptune could have you being very, very compassionate. So just beware. It's not a bad idea to give away money or to contribute to a charitable organization, but just beware of giving away too much, in that desire to be very compassionate and very kind. That is something that Neptune does bring about, that desire for compassion. Remember, with that energy of dissolving the ego, we be giving it all away. Have to remember, we don't want to wind up having this adversely affect us. And I would just say also, Neptune being all about sometimes deception and confusion, do make sure, you keep an eye on your finances, Pisces. This isn't ongoing and continuous. It is more when Neptune gets triggered by an aspect, but do know that is one of the downsides of the effects of Neptune. If you are Aquarius or Aquarius rising, this is going to take place in your third house. This, of course, is your communications hub. It is everything to do with your presence on the internet, in media. It can be film, television, radio, newspapers. It's all our words, our ideas, our images. It is our speaking, our writing. Could be very, very creative there if you do anything in those areas, if you're a content creator, if you're writing. It could also lead to some confusion in you being understood, so do be aware of that as well. Neptune is great in terms of that illusion and creativity, so you might be doing things that are very, very creative in terms of writing, speaking, again, image, film, visual communication, but at the same time could not be heard clearly, or people won't be understanding the message, because Neptune can also blur the boundaries or blur what is being said. So you might at certain times, especially as I said, when there are certain aspects, find that it is a little more difficult to get things out there clearly. And again, with that energy of Neptune dissolving boundaries, the third house, Aquarius, is also siblings, cousins, other kin. You could find they are going to be overstepping the boundaries for the next several years. What is sort of off limits is not going to be off limits anymore, perhaps in what they are doing and in what they are saying. So just something else to keep in mind during this 12, 13-year transit of Neptune through your third house. If you are Capricorn, sun or rising, this of course is taking place in your fourth house, one of the most private areas of our chart. It is home, it is family, again, family of origin, family of choice, hometown, region, province, state. So family members can definitely be stepping over or overstepping boundaries. That is something that happens with Neptune. Neptune is definitely that blurring of boundaries. So you might be challenged a little bit with that over the next several years, Capricorn. At the same time, making you much more compassionate, perhaps, with family members. There could be also, depending on the aspects, Capricorn, bouts of confusion. Perhaps things aren't exactly as they seem in terms of family relationships or family ties. The idealism of Neptune could also affect you in terms of where you live. So homeland, region, province, you might have a lot of idealistic energy about that. It could be also that things aren't going to measure up to your ideals. So you might be thinking how you can better that. It could involve a move. That isn't what Neptune necessarily signifies, but it will depend on other aspects, of course. But that idealistic, visionary energy of Neptune Capricorn is really going to make itself felt in terms of home, in terms of family. So you're going to want probably your home to be really that intimate, I'll say, safe space. There's the idea when we come home that we shut the door on the outside world. So that feeling of being, safe and secure and cozy inside our house. And you're probably going to have that same idealistic, creative or visionary energy applied to family and to family ties. If you are Sagittarius, sun or rising, Neptune has now entered your fifth house for the next 13 years. This has everything to do with romantic relationships, love, lovers, sex, everything to do with children. So parenting, adoption, pregnancy, your children, other children you are close to, such as godchildren, grandchildren, even adult children, that idea of next generation in our lives. Neptune can make you very, very compassionate with those people. You are probably cutting people a better deal than you would ordinarily. At the same time, a lot of visionary and idealistic energy for your romantic relationships, for the children in your life. There is a blurring of boundaries, I keep saying, with Neptune. Neptune, remember, is also illusion, confusion, deception. So perhaps children will definitely be overstepping boundaries. Maybe there's going to be that shift from you are the parent, they are the child, and then there's a shift, and I can attest to that. When your children start parenting you and giving you advice, so perhaps that will be something that will happen to you. But just do know, and again, I keep saying this isn't ongoing. It happens depending on aspects that are going on and does depend on aspects in the natal chart. But there could be also some deception at times, again, some confusion, but it could even apply to your role as a parent, be you the biological parent, the adoptive parent. I even put in this category spiritual parent. So I have friends who don't have children, but they are in a parental role to other children in their life just because of their implication and their caring. And these children go to them as well for advice and things like that. So again, that redefinition, perhaps that blurring of those roles. Neptune's job also is to dissolve the ego. So your ego will certainly be tested, perhaps by children, perhaps by romantic partners as well. This could also redefine how you do parenting and how you do romantic relationships. If you are Scorpio, sun or rising, like me, I am a Scorpio rising, this is going to take place in your 6th house. This, of course, is your health. It has to do with our daily routines, our habits, things like exercise, diet, just what we do on a regular basis. It is coworkers, workload, job as well. We say lifestyle habits, also just those things we do in a routine manner. Neptune can definitely be blurring boundaries in the workplace. Yes, coworkers might overstep their boundaries, might encroach more. You get the feeling that sometimes, there is too much of that. Overstepping the boundaries, maybe in doing your work for you or telling you how to do your work. It can also bring a lot of idealism and redefining your lifestyle habits, your daily habits. It's other jobs also that are not paid. So can have us approaching those or work more with a very creative approach, very idealistic approach. If your job or even your unpaid work has any creative aspect to it at all, Neptune is going to really, really help you with that. You're going to have a lot of intuition in the workplace, a lot of creativity. You might find yourself feeling your way around. That is something you already do, Scorpio. You are quite the type to just watch how things are playing out, and you pick up quite easily, being a water sign, on what is going on in terms of emotions. So if any sign doesn't take things at face value and is examining what's going on behind the scenes, it's you, and that is going to increase even more with Neptune there. Just beware of being too compassionate, spreading yourself too thin at work, again, whether it is paid or unpaid, doing too much. And Neptune will also challenge your ego. If you have a lot of ego involved in your job, or that is a source of a lot of ego, Neptune is going to challenge that, because Neptune is the dissolution of the ego. So just be aware of that. That is the downside of Neptune, that potential for confusion, that potential for being overly compassionate, spreading ourselves too thin, and of course that challenge to the ego. If you are a Libra, of course, this is happening across from you, Libra, in your 7th house. So committed partners, life partners, business partners, it is also rivals, the competition, it is exes as well, all the significant others in our life. Neptune can bring a lot of illusion, confusion, deception there. Do be aware of that, especially probably with rivals and the competition. At the same time, you might be overly compassionate with a partner, cutting them a better deal than you would normally. Just be aware of that. At the same time, a lot of idealism, a lot of wonderful idealism for your partnerships to accede to the next level. There's almost a lofty energy there, or a higher self energy. You're not just settling for a partnership that works. You're going to want it to transcend. I think that's the word I'm looking for, Libra. Transcend and be really a communion of souls or a communion of spirits, not just, hey, that's the person I'm making it sound awful, but you're going to want to take it really to the next level in terms of, as I said, soul energy or spiritual energy, really that melding. Neptune is very idealistic and won't settle for anything less. And again, that idea of compassion and cutting people a better deal, maybe you will tend to do that with rivals in the competition. Maybe you will tend to do that with an ex as well. You could be doing that with your partner. Also, just be aware of that. There's that energy that can get too carried away and, you're just overly compassionate, overly giving, overly forgiving with these people. This can also be, as I said, a partner or a business partner. We don't want to be completely depleting ourselves financially or energetically. If you are Virgo, sun or rising, this is your 8th house. So wealth you benefit from through others. That idea of partners, money, business partner or life partner, any loans, mortgages, grants. It is also debt as well. It is inheritances. It is legacies. There is, with Neptune transiting that house, Virgo, the potential for these monies to sort of fade in and out. Remember, again, Neptune with that blur, that mirage energy, things might come in and they might go out again. And you sort of can have the feeling that they are within your grasp and then they seem to slip through your fingers like water. It is the downside of Neptunian energy. Remember, Neptune's job is to dissolve the ego. So if you have a lot, and I was saying this, I think, for Pisces, because it is happening in the 2nd house, another money house. Yes, it would be for Pisces because Pisces is across from you. So if you have a lot of ego tied up in your partner's wealth, in a business partnership, in a grant that you have, any of these ideas of this feeding your ego or feeding your self-esteem, Neptune is definitely going to be challenging that. Just again, remember, Neptune's compassion can also have us giving away too much or, being, I'm going to say overly kind. You might be thinking, how can you be overly kind? But just to our own detriment. That's the word I've been looking for, to our own detriment. So, an inheritance, for example, again, with that energy of Neptune, people overstepping their boundaries. Oh, that's not fair. And you're thinking, oh, yes, you're right. That's not fair. And you're going to be giving too much away. Or you are, cutting a business partner a much, much better deal type of thing. So just do be aware of that. There's that whole compassion, dissolution of ego. The energy of Neptune is, we're all one, right? There's no boundaries where I stop as a person and this other person begins. It's really that, collective flowing together. But we have to, at least down here on this earthly plane, also think of ourselves. We don't want to completely deplete ourselves financially or in terms of energy either. If you are Leo, sun or rising, of course, this is taking place in your 9th house. This is whatever is foreign to us. So it is traveling to faraway places. It is foreigners in and of themselves. It is higher education. It is religions, exploring different religions. It is mass media, internet. It is publishing. It's our whole belief system and what we hold as true. Neptune there is wonderful energy, Leo, in that you are perhaps feeling that intuitive or creative energy of Neptune pushing you to explore different religions, exploring different ways of thinking, of seeing the world. You're eager to study and to learn about these things. So you might be really taking a deep dive over the next several years into foreign cultures, different religions. How do other people see the world? What is the outlook? With Neptune also, it might very much be with the energy of again, dissolution of the ego, of compassion. You know, if there is any energy that is going to send you off to an ashram for several months, it's going to be Neptune in your ninth house. Maybe this is just an idea of college level or university level courses that are exploring, you know, something like comparative religions, or it could be a philosophy course, or it could be a course on just studying different cultures, you know, ancient Greek studies, Islamic studies, just something that is completely different to you and is going to bring you another view of the world. And again, you know, the energy of wanting to perhaps dissolve the ego, not be so anchored in this is who I am and this is where I'm from and this is how I was raised and this is how I think, or this is my outlook on the world. There's going to be a lot of dissolution of boundaries with that, Leo, and you're going to have these wonderful explorations. Neptune's energy lends itself very well to that type of thing. Just again, the downside of Neptune is complete dissolution of boundaries. I should say the downside, it is a very lofty, ultimately the energy we should all tend towards, but it is very hard to reconcile that down here in the physical plane, and it's not an energy we can sustain continually for a very long period of time, but is wonderful in terms of that openness and porousness Neptune is going to give you, Leo, to explore all these different things. If you are a Cancer sun or rising, this is taking place in your 10th house. This, of course, is wherever you seek success. It is your status, your standing. It is your rise up on the ladder. Whatever wall you are leaning that ladder against can make you very creative, Cancer, in achieving those goals. Some great intuitive downloads, definitely. At the same time, a lot of blur with Neptune, so that goal could fade in and out. You know, that next rung on the ladder could be there, and then when you reach for it, it won't be there anymore. And that can be challenging. Again, the goal of Neptune is to dissolve the ego, and the 10th house where this is taking place for you, Cancer, is very much about status, standing, and success. So something that tends to be very much tied to the ego. It is going to have you probably reevaluating what you think about success. You know, where are you seeking success? Is it worth it? How much of it is tied to who you are, and helping you redefine that. Remember, the 10th house does sit square to the first house. So this isn't set up properly for you, Cancer, but if you can imagine you are in the first house, you would be here, and Neptune is transiting your 10th house, highest point in your chart. So always a challenge between self and where we seek success, right? What is our success a reflection of who we are? And at the same time, is our self-image tying in with what we are doing or where we're trying to achieve success? You know, it could be that classic this just isn't me type of thing. You know, I want to get out of the rat race. I just don't see myself doing this anymore. This isn't who I am anymore. But it is a long transit. It is 13 years. So definitely there will be a redefinition there. But at the same time, wonderful insight and ability to gain clarity on who we are in terms of our success. If you are Gemini sun or rising, this is taking place in your 11th house. So this has everything to do, of course, with networking, social circle, teams you're on. It can be anything that is societies, associations, clubs, political parties, unions. You know, if you're in a band, if you're in a theater troupe, this all falls under the 11th house. There will be, I say this as a Taurus sun because I've just finished about, again, 13, 14 years of Neptune in my 11th house. The feeling of friends overstepping boundaries, sometimes not really respecting, you know, your boundaries and your limits. At the same time, wonderful for creative downloads. You know, if there's anything you want to do within a group or an organization, you're going to have a lot of a very creative approach, a lot of intuition, also Gemini with Neptune. So if you are part of a new group, or if there's something up in the group, you're really going to be able to feel that quite quickly, and do rely on your intuition as well, especially if you're part of a new association, if you're sort of, you know, wondering about joining a new group or joining a new organization, intuition is always very, very strong wherever Neptune is. And again, just, there's also that feeling of too much compassion sometimes with Neptune. So, sometimes cutting friends a better deal than we normally would. I keep using that expression, or, accepting friends overstepping the boundaries. Neptune is also related to substances and substance abuse. Friends could be perhaps indulging in that too much and sort of overstepping their boundaries with you, or in terms of what's going on. That's just something else to keep in mind. Might be just frustrating you by making too much demands on your time, on your energy as well. It seems as if, wherever Neptune is, that idea of people being able to respect our limits just gets a little more blurred. So just do keep that in mind, Gemini. And finally, Taurus, sun or rising. This, of course, is taking place in your 12th house. The house Neptune is associated with. The 12th house, I always say, is a very private part of our chart. It is not actually that hidden because it is above the horizon. So sometimes others can really see what's going on there, even if we don't want to talk about it. It is things like therapy, counseling, altered states. I was saying for Gemini, not just for Gemini, but Neptune does relate to substances and substance abuse as well. So that idea of altered states, all those practices we have to tap into our inner self, it's that inner work. It is also by the same idea, whatever is secret or secretive, so it can be secrets you're entrusted with. It's things you keep secret from others that are personal just to you. It can also be unseen work. It can be unrecognized efforts. They're very much that idea of working behind the scenes. You could be doing something in the next several years, Taurus, that is very creative, but that is very behind the scenes, that you might not get the credit for, that idea of working in the shadows. Neptune can bring a lot of intuition in terms of exploring your inner self, your inner psyche, patterns you have. It can also have us intuitively feeling out secrets. There's an energy there that is really going to help you do a deep dive within yourself if that is what you want to do. Neptune can actually be showing you glimpses of things, and you're going to be feeling your way through this very intuitively. Things might come up in a dream state or in a meditative state. Wonderful energy to have there. Wonderful in terms of self-exploration. The only downside, it would say, Neptune with all that blur can have us almost losing ourselves. We can wind up too much in that other world and have trouble making our way back. I hope I'm clear with that. There's an idea of, I keep saying, Neptune is that very otherworldly energy, that very creative energy, but none of us can really sustain that for a super long, extended period of time. We can almost get, lost in that. It's like extremely, extremely creative people usually struggle here in, the physical plane, or I'll say the real world. There's always that energy of reality that doesn't necessarily meld with that otherworldliness or that irreality of Neptune. So just do know that while you are on your deep dive exploration there, Taurus. So guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you an idea of what Neptune is going to be doing in your sign for the next little over a decade. Let me know what you think about that Neptune-Pluto energy as well. It is going to be with us several years more. I think I said until 2034. Not constant. It seems to move in or out, but we are in a time of change. So that is part of it, that energy of change. And we are going to get into also Uranus and Saturn changing signs in May and in July. So part of that greater shift, things seem to be almost quite zany since 2024, and it's going to continue into 2026. A lot of shifts to get used to, and then things will settle, but we'll be in a different dynamic. We have these outer planets, and I've said this several times, and I'll wrap up on this, moving from earth and water. So Pluto from Capricorn, earth sign, to air sign, Aquarius. So we are moving from earth and water to air and fire. Neptune has left water sign Pisces, moved into fire sign Aries. Uranus is going to leave earth sign Taurus and move into air sign Gemini. Have I left? Oh yes, Saturn will also be leaving water sign Pisces and moving into fire sign Aries. So lots of new stuff going on in terms of the energetic signature of the planets. Drop me a like, drop me a comment, let me know how this is playing out for you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.